다단다 규진을 때는 중앙아세 텐데 세디 아니 균제 딩중 세드 나로네 당하는 주 하고고에 조디 텐데 양라 중립 토네 아니 코알로 죽당기 림바디 심베셔들에 데인드 제상가 텐데 딩중 세게 딩중티 아니 규단 지비기 남샤티 도지 세바하고야 돼 개침으로 봐.
And so here where we've been discussing a little bit about the level of dependent origination in relation to sort of causal dependent origination in terms of the relationship between causes and effects, and then this brings us to this presentation here of the 12 links, and particularly the way in which we sort of enter into samsara, engage into samsara through the 12 links, and so it's very important that we have a very good and very clear understanding of the dependent origination at this level of causal dependent relation.
텐데 양나 중립이 나로네 디 유베 다단다 설류장배 도이 커서 아니 산지 좀 된디기 다 다라쇼게 쉬었나시 아니 디 유베 디중 시제 다라쇼 랍송 라바 딜라마송
네 좀마송
좀 된디기 제장가 아니 디 유베 디중 디게베 디게스 다 설류장배 또 세트리지 송레스
and so something which we discussed this morning about this sutta called the Rice Seedling Sutta, where the Buddha discusses the 12 links, and particularly this there's something which is said within that sutta where the Buddha says in terms of in relation of the way which the 12 links operate, that because this exists, yeah, so because this exists, that will arise. Because this arises, has arisen, that will arise. So the Buddha speaks in this way about in relation to the 12 links. Yeah. So this occurs because of that, the existence of that. This arises because it was produced from causes and conditions. So this arises because it's produced by that. So that's the causes and conditions. So the first piece where it says that because this arises because so this occurs because of the existence of that, then this is sort of talking about this is sort of refuting that things could arise causelessly. So and it presents the idea that things have to arise on the basis of causes and conditions.
Dene dikebe dikesedi. Dikebe chirilamne ato. Dikebe chiri dike steduzambe ani mitümbi jule kigmaris.
So then saying because this has arisen, that will arise. So this is discussing the idea that things have to arise from causes which are results have to arise from causes which are concordant with the result, in line with the result.
더 제상 란수기 땡제 락베그 고화점씩 마도메나 아니 디유비 디충세디 하고고 예배 손럽주 여래데 얘네 단도가 란수줄래 등진기 로 참어지 유디점베 디게비 가서 디유비 디충세디랑 안주기 네번이에요 말이스.
So if we only think in terms of the sort of more coarser level of dependent origination as we discussed, and then we take this statement that because this exists, that will occur, then you'll sort of get some understanding of that. but you won't get this much more subtle idea of how in relation to the subtle grasping to an inherent self. So you won't get that more subtle level if you don't have a deeper understanding of the dependent origination.
지가 소래 답이 주선으로 지원체 된지 개발 지기 주의 게임에 된지 마 개발다 야 답이 주 때니 개발 된지 거랑 저기 삼론으로 요청을 했어 배나 배시원도 준비 아니 런주 단다 아니 디도와 가서 런주 남셔준도 다 디나로 망치 가지고 레준데 킬링 장장인 준비 아니 주지여 봤더니 때니 저부지 그랬어 이제 배 타추비 시기요레스 때 이내야 참래 니주 상해 답변나 상보지가로야 미지를 로트리 톱이나 메디 로트리 톱이나 아니 고 배람루 첨부레스 고 톱디가 너무 쉬우지 톱이야 디기 고 갈래 춘이 맞아봐 주는 게 강라야 라마레바 콜레야 라디오 선도 지금 초르고 봤어.
So my teacher sort of mentioned in relation to this statement that because this exists, this will occur, and not just in terms of not arising from no cause at all, so not being causeless, but also in relation to arising in from permanent causes, and so. In a way that it's possible for this, it's actually possible for this kind of way of thinking to occur in our own minds. For an example, something in our example from our normal way of thinking, and most of us sort of accept that idea of the sort of karmic relation between causes and effects. In some way, we accept it. But then, that's for instance, if we take an example of someone who had the great fortune and great luck to win the lottery, and we almost feel that this result sort of almost arose unrelated, so that like they didn't do anything to really receive that great fortune, and it almost seems to us like it occurred unrelated to any causes and conditions.
아니 니주다 지 독자를 시에비나 독자고장 아주 계산 용도다 되고 줄로들이 통하야로 소바도 저 중앙도 잠배 고지 톱디간의 지 레브선으로 그렇지 배 지금 아주 마선의 쇼크 돼서 세셔 봐 근데 저 상만 주던 게뭐 지금 초벌 때는 용벌을 해서 삼로지기도 순이 저디로 지나 쇼크 영향 그러면 누가 그거다 쇼크 영향이 자와도 어디 가르치나 아니 세미나로리아 딜이야 자지감 되게 리얼리티 딜이야 액셉트 제마 투베 인자 되게 따따로 봐 따따양다 되게 따로 봐.
Oh yeah, so and also if we take the opposite some sort of more difficult situation that arises, for instance recently this sort of sudden flooding that occurred. And we often it's easy for us to get kind of shocked by things like that, but of course those situations occurred through the combination of many causes and conditions, and if we're prepared in our minds in that way of understanding how things arise in this way from many different causes and conditions, then then we wouldn't be so shocked. But if we're not prepared in relation to what is the reality, then it's like we're not able to accept these things when they occur.
So
this is like a sign, a sort of reason or a sign to show us where we actually are with these things.
제장가 남규 아란주 겨워가지 케밀랭이 장편바 장편바를 야 조조지 엉코 겨 ngaji killing me do say ki je shigo ba le jonde ranzo yang 장변면 신기 양고 지기 삼로지 ranzo na le den yoris.
So we often sort of talk about some sort of non-Buddhist tenet holders, such as the Charvakas, who don't accept, don't have, they don't accept past and future lives. But actually, I think that it's sometimes within ourselves we also have a little bit of that sort of belief within inside of ourselves.
다디 지금 아주 레전드 켈링기 유스지 아니 배 켈렘바 켈렌드 고베 켈렌 손롭친 되는 용야요 말이스 데 힌두즘베 다딜이야 좀센다 리베 코지 세부속으로 마도 아니 고 나나바인 아 개원가지 켈링기 유 세바점기 아주 디메서 두 말바스.
And so it can be that there's this way in which we sort of talk about, we say, oh, I accept the sort of law, karmic law of karmic cause and effect, but this can be perhaps a little bit sort of kind of silly kind of way, a little bit stupid way of doing it, because if we just say, oh, I'm a Buddhist, therefore I accept the sort of law of karmic cause and effect, but then we don't sort of clarify that the meaning of that through sort of logic and reasoning, then this becomes a kind of silly approach to something like karmic cause and effect.
제정가다 디기 녀셰 디기 레준제기 남샤라야 녀셰 템보 녀게 쳇도 아니 제정가 란주탄다 세만남진나네 중백이 아니 리버솜지 딘지 양다 다 지기 저다 양다 랑신 다양다 마미비 다양다 시 데기 라비용베 갑라야 아니 딜라야 제첩둑다 독첩둑다 어디 좀 변해가 첨부르스.
And so, in terms of this developing a much greater certainty in relation to subjects such as the law of karmic cause and effect, then for that in the sort of Pramana system, in texts like Pramanavartika, it provides us with a series of sort of valid logical syllogisms and valid logical signs, such the three categories of valid signs, the causal sign, the nature sign, and then the non-referential sign, it's called, or not non-observable sign. So there is these three categories of valid sign or valid syllogism, sign for a valid syllogism, and using these helps us to get a greater certainty in relation to law of karmic cause and then using within those signs and reasons, we use the sort of understanding what is the what's called the forward pervasion, what's called the reverse pervasion within those logical sort of constructs. That helps us to develop more certainty about such as topics such as karmic law.
다 제순 도 시도 잠베 주디단 깬데 창바이나 드부 녀바도 깬예레 주디단 드부디 메바이나 드부 기 거르소레 기 마제비 쳄그레 세기 차바디 로르야 땡부데 디기 쳇도 아주다 다사다해디 내가디 통고요레스.
And so there's a sort of an explanation of what's called what follows after something, or the opposite of that, which means that, for instance, it says that if the causes and conditions for something to arise are all in place, then that phenomenon, that result will definitely arise. And if the causes and conditions don't exist, and then the resultant phenomena will definitely not arise. And so what we do is to get a more using this, we get a more stable and detailed sort of understanding of the way in which when you have, so you get a more stable understanding of the these arguments, the sort of pervasive arguments that lie behind this understanding.
다디 nenga chenbu ji yinwe gyumzen kharirasna kaya chigi le gyundel ya samlo dang ani gyudigi chewe dributi nyabar to nyong gogure kende da chena nga dributi nyong gogure se ge samlo de mebe ina nganzu gi chue khasu ji pyutago chigi sene chetugu maris 가지는스나 아주 삼로 나로라야 규디 제네양 dributi nyong wegi 캬바스 유기 말에 삼로 나로디 오레스.
So the sort of danger here and the related to this, and the important point that comes from this is in relation to that way in which, if the causes are in place, the result or the effect has to arise, and if we've created the causes for something, then we necessarily have to experience a result. But if we don't have this kind of understanding, then whatever kind of sort of Dharma practices we engage in, there's never going to be a sort of complete or a kind of an excellent or complete form of a Dharma practice, because we'll still have that idea that if I do this, it's not necessarily true, or there's no pervasion that I will have to experience the result of that.
Some people, now I will speak a little bit in English, then take a little rest. So, some people ask me a question. Maybe they wanted to be curious and maybe a little bit lazy sign, because they say, why we need to put so much effort of this logic and reason to bring kind of a conviction through the debate to know this cause and effect relations very well in order to bring the flavor of the practice. So because they give a reason, like look at the Milarepa, not studied like that, but still he got a full enlightenment. And then there are few other examples who remembers past and future life very clearly, and then so on. But then this kind of a question, I think before asking to your Lama or me or your friend, most importantly, you need to ask question to yourself that why Milarepa, the turning point of the Milarepa's life, when he have to bring the black magic and kill all the people, and then he decided to find a Dharma. Why? Because for us maybe we studied and debate and so much, but still not 100% guarantee that we will feel like, okay, maybe there is no future life, maybe this whatever I've done something bad, this no result. We have this, but Milarepa killing all these 30 people accidentally or forced by other people, so he felt like this is on me. Now I somehow have to
You have to experience
this the negative results. Not just no single doubt at that time. So he searched for Dharma. But we've been doing so many bad things, but no question of that. But Milarepa, That time he passed Parmana.
Passed by, yeah.
Passed, because he
Passed
already,
by,
the result of
yeah.
Parmana depend is to bring this kind of realization. Definitely it is going to on me. Now I have so many problems already from past. Now on this, I cannot carry anymore. With this kind of conviction, he tried to find Dharma. And then Great Marpa is the one great reminder every time when he starts torturing, looks like torturing, but so much love to Milarepa. He always says, "You dikchen." How do you translate?
And you're sinful is literally like
Yeah,
sinful one, but
I don't know.
you're one who's done so much
Sinner. The
negativity.
sinner is more like,
Yeah.
is, what is the
How do you say
good
dikchen?
translation on
Dikchen.
Well, for Dikpa,
Dikchen?
Dikchen.
The person,
Dikchen,
yeah,
person who has
committed
tremendous negative potential.
yes.
Yeah.
So the sinner will be, it sounds
Yeah,
very
it is
quickly.
not good.
So
That's very Christian.
it's Christian thing. So it is such a great reminder. Whatever he is experiencing some purification, like you need to do it. You need to do it. It's then Milarepa always understand this is not a torture. This is something to purify my something negative there. So this, even person maybe quite a knowledge, maybe a lama or name of the having lama like me, and then some have a name of Gishi, not easy to get this kind of experience like Milarepa was having at that time. So that we need to ask, what this kind of curiosity, this kind of belief, this kind of faith, where is in me? So then coming down to the point where you feel like I don't have that, then only debate and logic and reason you need to bring. Otherwise, no hope. So sometimes we need to compare with Milarepa, sometimes we compare with the other great masters, sometimes then you just leave it there. So you need to your own thing. So that's why this 제가 남전에 송배 그런데 이 여러분 아주 세마톡숨 써야 돼. How do you translate 세마톡숨?
So in the Pramanavartika text, the Dharmakati's Pramanavartika text, it talks about the the three sort of cycles
three species,
of,
I don't know.
Of valid cognition.
Yeah.
Three sort of cycles.
The three lines of the syllabus.
Yeah.
제가 단도 디나로리야다. 배나 rupa digit layer rupa the lapshanani haku re.
Three sort of categories of reason that are used in the Dharmakati's text on compendium of valid compendium of pramana.
제가 아니 랑이 배나 지구 중화데 줄을 때 먹어나 아니 그뒤 윤에 아니 지가서 그래 유디면에 요청으로 봤어. 다도 요청으로.
So if you accept that that if you have this acceptance that for a result to arise, it doesn't necessarily have to rely on a cause. Then without any kind of cause, a result would be able to occur, which is.
제가 매번 그때 줄 유텔을 때 먹어봐 다도 요청이요나 아니 유디 메살에 곧 통해 요청 고그래 되는 누가 왔어. 진짜 상마로 안줘다 다다 설류장배 거수 설류장배 거수 and 상황 좀 되는 벨자는 거.
So this is what in the Rice Seedling Sutra the Buddha was sort of explaining through example, is that if something, if a result arising didn't have to rely on the causes and conditions, then but what you see is that it doesn't, in a place where the causes and conditions have not occurred, you don't see the result. So these through example, this is how the Buddha was explaining in the Rice Seedling Sutra.
제장가 단다 다 남편한테 송반나 신체에게 근데 되게 리퀘스트 거체 아니 누구 주제 아니 유도 제베인데 제가 제베 치르세디
So then in the Pramana sort of literature, it states a syllogism, a logical syllogism, where it says that the sprout is because
누구 주제 아니 유당 제베인데
arises through the operation of causes because it's a it occasionally arises because it occasionally arises.
디가사
Occasionally.
내가 디가서 갑자기 여봐 갑자기 매번 차.
Yeah, so sometimes sometimes it arises and sometimes it doesn't arise. So it only arises on occasion or occasionally.
다 딘디기 따디 마고 용주 잠베 아니 아주 개체셔들 좀센디 삼보당 베깔라 아니 랭가제바당 따도 여바다 매번니 긴도 전부 통고 왔어.
So this the whole sort of main point or the crux of this syllogism is that something which arises like only not all the time, but sometimes arises, sometimes doesn't arise, so arises occasionally, is contradictory with always being existent or always never existing.
제장가다 딘디기 남진기 리베 나노 리바 짜치무쇼 망부 예베 나노네 아니 주도 제버드베 리바 세티 주도 제버드베 리바 세티 쉬비자시무지리스.
So this throughout all of the reasons which are presented in these texts, this reason of arising through the operation of causes is actually one of a really important reasoning.
For that reason, Lama Tsongkhapa, when one of his master asked him to write one special teaching, which is to to transform sirve, transforming suffering into the path.
Yeah.
And then Lama Tsongkhapa said, many of us wanted to transform suffering into the path because we don't wanted to accept the suffering. This is one of the main obstacles. So then he said, first you need to learn to accept the reality, which is Junde Denjung.
So which is the dependent origination at the level of sort of cause and effect, causal dependent origination.
Tene ta di indu zambe arandu pigi tene jerimbuchigi dama tene sonya digi zawadi jerimbuchigi tanda tsema namrengi kapso riba ane gyule gyuda jebe riba tela shindu be komri chimbo ten yozang ande sungu yorwas.
So when J. Rinpoche is talking about this kind of pith instruction in relation to taking suffering into the path, and he's also really sort of referring back to the sort of Pramana text where it talks about and particularly this reason where things arise through the operation of causes and conditions, or through the process of causes and conditions.
And then when you get kind of familiar with this kind of wisdom or this logic reason, if you can apply this to day-to-day life, whenever we have faced some problem, and this problem has occurred to me, it is not just something came, as we say, something fall from sky. Sometimes we say, what we call it, coincidentally. Coincidentally. Randomly. Or something.
Yeah,
so without any planning, or without any kind of cause, then it just appear like that. So most of us, when we complain about our life, it is something like that. It is something like that. So in order to reduce this, so to accept the reality, so with this, with the logic and reason, more you get familiar with. And even you cannot do the commitment of reciting so many mantras or so many, not important. Just bring this in front of you, and then use all your logic and reason to say this has to happen. And this happens, and then most surprising thing is all these things has to happen because there are causes and the conditions and meet together. This happened, okay. But most the annoying thing is why I'm still clinging towards this instant or this negative side already so strongly. Wish I can accept it and then move on. That's the hard part. So first you need to once more you try to jazang ko genya ba chungba di gyudan kyenel tene chungba re indu zambe tindegi niju ko chik chungsha ba del ya zinji dev mayimba ko dil sunan yobe na tindji di tande netang tinde dil sunan yobe na tindji di maje gyu khar chego do se samro de na la ani shine zimba de me so do zimba je de me so do se kewa me so do kewa de me so do le da nyumo mi kewa de me so do se de samlo shine le was.
And so when these sort of, for instance, when these bad conditions arise for us, and instead of sort of forgetting that these things all occur from various causes and conditions, and instead sort of really sort of clinging on to the situation, these bad situations as they occur to us, instead what we should do is to sort of really understand that the context in which they arrive, and also to really think that what is the cause of that, such that I will not engage in the causes of that again. So, for instance, whether it's in terms of these negative situations that arise and not then again creating the causes for them to occur. Or, for instance, in terms of the preventing the mental afflictions from arising, and so always looking to not create the causes for these things to occur is the sort of instead of just clinging on. This is how we should interact with these situations.
So we all like the practice of impermanence and emptiness. So all these practices we take, this is very important. But yes, of course it is important. Then many of us, when we practice, including myself, I improved a little bit. Just kidding. No, I'm not talking with my pride. Maybe put a little effort there, and my kind teacher guided me on that. So it's we found Dharma and the emptiness, bodhicitta, so great. But then, actually, because we don't know how to apply this, and it's more like if a beggar with the eyes, and then you give him like something, a big diamond, and even he does not know what the diamond is, and then putting him in this, the diamond itself is so precious. But if he does not know how to use it, then what is the problem? It is he cannot function or use it. This. Similarly, I asked this many times to my teacher, and my teacher has a very good student. She is the effort she put in her life is incredible, much better than me. So she did a few months retreat on emptiness with the guidance of my teacher. But then after a few months, she comes to my teacher saying, I can meditate quite well on emptiness and impermanence. But then he said, there is no kind of a joy feeling, that it does not give me that much. Why is that? So then my teacher said, he asked me this question, why this is happening? And I don't have a good answer to that also. So then I asked my teacher, what is that? I don't know. So my kind teacher said, look at this sixth chapter of Chandakirti, and especially how to research how yogis refute the self. That part you just read it. And then I read it and couldn't understand so much. And then my teacher kindly guided me and said, there are two ways to find emptiness. So some people, they try to study on emptiness, impermanence, and then they come to know all the details, and then they think like, oh, that's emptiness. Okay. There's no joy at all, because this is more like you learn about some physics or some kind of a quantum causality, quantum physics or mechanics, or how all this complicated subject, and then there's not much joy there. But then here, when the Chandakirti points out, should refute like the yogis. So how does the yogis, the research is at the beginning,
yes, so it says that all of the faults, the mental afflictions and all of the faults arise from the view of the false view of the transitory collection.
Oh, 제단가 묘모당 묘모 껴나 말을 지소라서도 묘모를 발레 견데다 용당 묘모기 자와디 당진기 체당 아니 당진되기 아니 미버디 유해당매 당진되기 미버디 매버이나 당진되기 미버디 식토버지 중버이나 신이 묘모 매버스토야 동해 매버스토야지 도 삼게 라와딜레 온도 삼베 아니 신에 아니 당매 집뒤여버이나 라와.
So in terms of this selflessness, then, and relation to this verse, then what we have to look at, what this verse is explaining, this line from this verse is explaining to us, is the way in which we have to understand the way in which the mental afflictions bring the faults, and then we also have to understand the way in which the self-grasping acts as the root, or the root cause for those mental afflictions. And then also we have to understand how, in terms of the sort of referential object of that self-grasping, as to whether it really exists or doesn't exist. And so, looking into this kind of referential object of the self-grasping, then if we can see that actually doesn't, it's non-existent, then that gives us a kind of, looking through all of this process and understanding these things, that's what gives us the hope in terms of understanding of selflessness and bringing hope. That's the process we should go through.
제장가 디 라베 갑라 등진 거자 동해 민도바디 민도비 동해디 가완에 중샤스도 선배 아니 묘몽 제샤스 좋아 다 묘몽이 자와디 가르기 지도스나 당생이 치도스 세상 디유베 디중 디게베 디게 세 딱다도와
So in connecting this with that line from the Rice Seeding Sutra where it says, because this exists, this will occur, also we should make the sort of connections here between how the unwanted suffering, the suffering that we don't want to experience, we sort of look to where does that come from, and then connecting that to the mental afflictions, and then looking at looking to what is the root of those mental afflictions, which is then the self-grasping. And so this is the way in which we have that context of, because this exists, this will occur.
제상가다 고 바든데만 손에 딱딱 디간도 냄토지 sö고야 돼. 알아서 호목으로도 봐. 제상가 고 알아서기 민두비기 단다 까니만 거지 태연한디 까니디 아니 거안에 레샤세도 준비 차소녀 좀 계셔서 다 차발로 소바도 저기 계사디기 시디 가르치도서는 당생이 치기도 아니 당생이 가르치는 연구도 세도 당생도 튜버에도 뭐 튜버에도 따져지체 뭐 튜버에는 제약해 뭐 튜버에는 제약해요 막 다 보다가 샤요 달로 튜버에도 준비 되는 진단계 로디 다 통원도 준비 그냥 라와치 통지 대라와도 통원도 준비 아니 신의 디메버 수업을 텔 때니 아니 다치기 신의 내가 저 땡제 양다 중립이 저 머리벌로 내오나 않고 아주 마선에 아주 참래 지기 도신 매버 쇠야라 자원에 마 매버 쇠원도 정신 양라 참 감도야 되고 주니로 봐.
And so this is our sort of homework in a sense, to sort of be able to sort of press down on these buttons exactly to see sort of what how these operate. So for instance, if you have so understanding where all of our unwanted difficulties and suffering come from, and how they come from attachment and the other mental afflictions, and then understanding that how that attachment and other mental afflictions arise from their root of which is the self-grasping, and then looking into the self-grasping and looking into that to see whether the self-grasping is a mistaken kind of mind or an unmistaken kind of mind, or is confused or not confused. And of course, if it's non-mistaken, then there's not much to do about that. But if we find that mind of self-grasping is mistaken, and then we can then find the opposite kind of mind, which is in a kind of direct counteract, apprehending things in a directly opposite way to that mind, then this gives us the hope of being able to destroy to bring down that self-grasping, and there you have, and then that gives us this sense of how we're able to get at the root, the ignorance which lies at the root of the 12 links, and so as you would wish to take down a kind of dukshin, a poisonous tree, to take down a poisonous sort of plant or something by cutting it completely away from its root, then this is how we would go about this process.
So then you don't need to
and they'll all topple down one by one.
You don't need to worry about the leaves and the flowers and all this. So same here. 다디 인도 잠베 단다 딘지기 단다 제준 정도기 캬바디 녀바 딘지기 야보주 중소나 아니 신에 단다 아주 두델라라 추지 매일 도유베 이치스 다지고요바 데나신 아니 도와디요바디 가르기 쳐버렸으네 매여바디 쳐버렸어 매들 때니 아니 도와디 중얼했어 러브요바 데나신시 아니 알아서 땡제 양나 중년나마 상모당도 잠베 아니 다지기 등 단단한 란줄이야 아니 민두비기 지 땡제 양나 중년이 디구도 가르기 중송슬라도 잠베 아니 편지기 주 머리바다 니버 두제다 손번 남실 때네 충분했어 니시에 도르바다.
And so if we sort of then sort of all of the using this reason which comes from the Pramana literature of how there's a pervasion of how things will follow after or not follow after the causes that precede it. So in the Pramana literature, it actually uses this, and there's a pervasion to the argument of something existing. If the causes exist, the results will exist. If they don't, they won't. That there's a reason which is used, a quite famous reason used in the Pramana literature of how on a smoky pass there must be fire because there's smoke. This is the syllogism. This is set up. And for the reason, using the reason of the existence of smoke, you can prove the existence of fire because the smoke must arise from fire. So likewise, using this kind of logic, when we apply that to the 12 links of existence here, then we would relate all of the unwanted results which occur from which occur within the 12 links, and then connect that to the core, connect that to the cause in them, which is the link of the kind of throwing link, which is that of that of ignorance, which then sets off the chain of karmic formations and then consciousness like this. So using that understanding of if something exists, it must not. If the cause exists, it must come into being. If the cause doesn't exist, it won't.
That's something ko medab chashavina ko towaje judi meji wurs ki shibiyo mara me khoran ke di judi mambu chobal teni ke goyedi an danshin cheje tandang ranju maribata ani dujigi le an nabasheba yoba samshigi ko nyomo jeadang 아니 차소지 잡아게 요 말인데 아니 델레야 수요딥제기 아니 단다 말한 주기 개바세바다 고발렘바도 조용도 점배 아니 고 차장 냠도 초원소는 아주 너무 끼기로 하세네 타주는 시도였지.
So also if we think about this example that we used of the fire, and of course it's not only fire that not only the fire that gives rise to the cause of the smoke. The fire, and along with the fire, go many causes and conditions to produce the smoke. So likewise, in terms of the 12 links, it's not so. If we have the ignorance at the beginning, and then the karmic formations, and then the consciousness, it's not guaranteed just from that set of sort of causes that all the other unwanted results will arise. It also it requires this sort of ripening factors or sort of awakening factors, which are the links, the link of the 8th link, the link of craving, and then the 9th link of sort of taking up or clinging. So those are the ones which those are also factors which are required in order to sort of mature or ripen the process fully.
제장가다 마시 줄 게제 용구리 예나엔다 네가솔이야 단다 서류장도 도요가소 아니 가서리 치 텐데다 나기 텐데 니송치 치 텐데디 다 서류를 소거도 줄 벤자는 거봐 다 나기 텐데디 아주 단다 텐데양로 중립을 주자는 거봐 제장가다 칠이야 지기 주단 겐스 치지 칠이야 주단 겐스에 디나로라 아니 주델라야다 지기 사변다 서신다 아니 지 사변대 캔 안도 참말로 주공도 샤
and so in the we'll talk about these the different links later in more detail, but in terms of what was spoken about in the Rice Seedling Sutra, it talks about 3 kinds of sort of dependent arising. One is the sort of external, and one is internal. So in terms of the internal one is the discussion which we'll have of the 12 links, but the external one is more related to sort of outer causes and conditions, such as to give rise to sort of fruits or harvest or something, then the causes and conditions such as the seed, etc., which are required for those outer causes and conditions.
다드니 단다 겐딜 다더니 유디티송아.
So that's in terms of that's in terms of cause.
다 겐딜이야 아니 치디 시고다 치덴데랑 게 시온데 다 사추 메론가 아니 줄루 아니 투 좋아다 탐제 아니 가르레스도 잠베 디조 상마 겐레스.
So so that firstly in terms of when we're talking in this terms of the external kind of dependent relations, then for instance if you're planting the seed, it would be the cause, the sort of substantial cause of the arisal of let's say a tree, but then also when we talk in terms of this external situation, in terms of conditions, so cooperative conditions, then here we're talking about the water, the proper soil, fertilizer, etc., which provide these cooperative conditions for the resultant, let's say tree to arise.
다 된다든지 배추 자원도 난기 된데 치 된데 배추 자원도 되네 넘버 쉐바 대당 아니 서싱이디 서싱선 하고 봐 the field.
So if we sort of join the example to the if we join up the example to the meaning of the example, then for instance the the consciousness we would relate to the field, sort of the field itself, whether the soil or the field in which we will plant. So then the seed we would in the example with seed we would relate to the meaning of the second link, the karmic formations. So then so the one who plants the seed in this case would be in the meaning would be the ignorance, the first link.
대조 상말로 규상마 창산에 겐디 가르고 요르시도 겐델이야 아니 디야 개버 친년들이야 아니 추들류도 고르바 추들류 고나 신시지 다스 쇠드니 데버 친년들이야 레단다 더더 가자 개버 세바도 고발렘발렘바.
And so in terms of all the sort of the cooperative conditions to help give rise to that, in the example you have the water and the fertilizer, the correct soil, this kind of thing, which are the kind of ripening cooperative conditions. And then in the meaning, this would be these kinds of ripening factors, or ripening factors such as which are the eighth link of craving, and the ninth link of clean. What do you use, Alex? Lemba. Obtaining attitude, or some also use this clinging. So these the eighth and ninth links would be these ripening factors. Activating factors. Yeah.
당아버 단데 제제 투스 지시르 봐. 제제 다 제제 투당 아니 알란주게 면도 야 제바당 아니 로마카 제바당 저 상으로 아니 제제 투를 봐자로 봐.
So the tree sort of coming into this plant coming into being with all its leaves and other branches and this kind of thing, we could relate in the that as the example. In the meaning we would relate to the six sense sources.
언제든 다드네 것이 가와다 시와도 상말로 안고 된도 가는 면도 감발로 써봐다 아니 사변디 매버 써봐다 저 탐지 그 것을 배자줘야.
And so ali mebazoe the shing mebazoe
답변은 그 면도도 좀 매버 차줘야 다. 그런 사변 코나에 매버 차줘야 저 정말로 배 가르쳐서 것이 있던데.
and so the leaves sort of disappearing, and the plant decaying would be related to the link of aging and then eventually death.
다 되네 되기 코아 죽도 되지기 빼단 빼데 치 된데다 난게 된데니데 빼도 야고 전자토바이나 kumri kade ka yaksa 뭐 빼면 잘 투나 안 가로지니 아 코알라 타르고도 슬라바당 아 머리벌레 타르고도 아 덴디기 체인 딜레 타르고도 세 somebody 랑싱기다 메시지 요레스.
And so if we were able to really sort of get a feeling for sort of relating these examples to the actual meaning, and sort of become very familiar with those, then this will really we should then really get this sense of wishing to needing to find a way to become liberated, or needing to find a way to break free from these mental afflictions, and to break this chain of the 12 links. It will really help us if we were able to really join up the sort of example with the deeper meaning.
다들이 된데 양라 중니기 단다 빼다 되니디하고 진짜토가 텔 때네 아니 라바도 단다 준제기 자와도 단도 줘야고 지센토베이나 아니 동예 덴비 아란조 덴바시 나로네 동예 덴비기 체주 동예 덴비 체주 시기 나로네 아니 당보 걸사 미다바다 아니 동해와 동해베기 삼로디 아니 콘도 추토버레스.
And so if we're able to really join up this the example and the deeper meaning that we talked about here in relation to the 12 links, but also in terms of sort of external dependent origination and internal dependent origination, and if we're really able to get a very strong understanding of the relationship, the correct relationship between causes and their results, then this will really help us to develop a much deeper understanding of the first two aspects of the truth of suffering, which are the aspect of impermanence and the aspect of kaze mesangwa. Suffering. So the aspect of impermanence and the aspect of suffering, which are the first two of the four aspects of the noble truth of suffering.
다데네 저는 디 솔루션 도 다가랑 게 나로려야 아니 직지된 저 송체 아니 디 님부시요래 제장가 단다 사변리 누구 중앙스 사변기 누구 깨버 미차 님바신스 단다 되게 봐 드디어 봐
거기 너매
요버베 어디 솔루션 도 그수요래
So net gearne to good saben
제장가 당원계를 총송아 아니 사변기 누구디 깨버치고 삼삼디 요 말이스.
So the sea doesn't have this sort of idea or motivation that I'm going to give rise to the sprout or the result.
아니 누구이나 양 사변기 깨버치고냐면 삼로디 요 말바스.
So and the sprout doesn't have the idea I was given rise to by the seed.
다디 조디 가르친 거 요르 시두점베 아니 신기 왕체바다 신기 아니 삼 가서래 아니 가서래 아니 가서 뮤직 주와 가서 원줄로 수베 로요아 원도 당치 로요아 원도 당치 아니 깨버시시부터 이렇게 말해스.
And so this sort of and so that also things are not sort of coming to arising through sort of the power of something else, such as the mind of Indra going prior to them arising, the mind of Indra sort of creating them. They don't come around. They don't occur like that either.
저상가 아니 디다냠도 고아직라야 아니 딘데 깨버디 지기 사변스인데 다딴도 또 고아데스 디 데스 타로 땅베이나 아니 사변도 뉴구 빼디 자른 거데 이나야 다 퇴로 좋게는 데스야요 아니 딘데 깨버디 아니 지기 딱베기 주다 아니 고지 가르쳐 그래 규진 제바 매바 아니 배 가르쳐 그래 간사 딱 봐도 궁금하다 봐세는 신시 규진 맞춰보던 리질된 많이 뭐 초보던 깨버리세 삼로디야 오 스튜브 중요하게 제도 좀 된디게 측디송 개디 측디기 고아될 때네 아니 아주 단다 동의대비 체주도 송부 타만이디 아니 동안의 다음에 봐 동안의 다음에 비 고아디 가주 숙제로 로토바이나 아니 대적이 아런 저기 동의대비 체주도 주베 동안의 다음에 하고연도 전에 신에 아니 고아 동의기랑 신신레 라바나 아니 니주 차상 증거 추니 아니 동의기랑 신진나로 맞자원이네 대투사 말이스
대투사 말이요. And so if we're so in terms of the arising of so things being under the not being under the power of something else like the Indra's mind going before it, but thinking about the way in which our deeper sort of understanding about the way that things arise. So, for instance, the sprout arising from the seed, and then looking into the sort of more subtle meaning of this, so to understand that things don't come from permanent causes, and that they don't arise through without a relation or connection between the cause and the result. So if we can understand that they don't arise in those kinds of ways, but they, and so also, for instance, the person does not exist as a because 간사기 미다파 pombo다파
어디 간사다 풍분이 신이 미tumba 마이바 신이 tumba 누수 삼로 지코로와야 되는 신체제 단다 규단 지부도 저 남샤디 라랑이 신이 tumba지마도 신이 미tumba를 중앙 말했어.
So also that in the same way that we sort of refute the idea that the person and the aggregates are not they're sort of their characteristics are not in discord with each other, that they are in accord with each other. So, for instance, that the person, so we don't accept that the person, the aggregates are impermanent and changing, but the person is permanent. So we don't accept that the aggregates and the person are discordant have discordant characteristics, but we accept that they do have they're in accord with each other, the characteristics. In the same way that we accept that causes that things don't arise from unrelated to cause, they arise as an aggregation of a series of a group of causes and conditions, and that they arise, and that they also arise with the result being in accord with the cause that produced it. Now, if we bring this kind of understanding, then the Buddha has said that when we talk about the last two characteristics of the last two aspects, of the first noble truth, the truth of suffering, which are the characteristics of being empty and selfless, then if you bring that kind of understanding in relation to cause and effect into these two aspects, then you get a deeper and a greater understanding, and particularly in relation to if we know these two last aspects of the Four Noble Truths very clearly, then we can really start to understand how samsara is really in the nature of suffering, and then develop this mind which really says, I can't stay any longer here in samsara.
So once you have this kind of conviction of the whole picture of this samsara, and then saying, now I cannot, because samsara is the nature.
In the nature of
In the nature of
its nature is its very nature is suffering.
Nature of the suffering, and then when you say it, but mostly our focus is particularly one manifest suffering, and then we are thinking about it. But now here, the clear picture is 동해 dembe cheju shi changbe thone, and 동해 demba se samlo de khosona, and koale tarde do slabena, tabe dembu shu chagores.
So if we develop a wish for liberation, which is based in a complete understanding of these four, as I've described in these four different aspects of the truth of suffering, and a sort of detailed understanding of those four aspects of the truth of suffering, then our wish, that wish for liberation really becomes kind of stable. Or stable.
Not only tempo, and shine kasore semna role you koreachi semno gujo techi was.
So we really get the sort of right understanding or meaning of what it means to say that I wish to be liberated from suffering.
So the shu de la ta shine ani nganjo demboshigi ani juksugi dilya ani samlodi demboshigi nezu dil shibujigi ta zichimbu chagor ba demboshigi nezu di 자침부 쇼지 통치 덴바시기 나로네 동해 덴바당 군중 덴바니 버로건 자와디 쇼심부주 통원도 점베 다 동해 텔레 네 타리아기 지게 타르바드레 고텐드레 아니 디 토지게 람레 다 디니니레 자침부 시비셔야지다 아니 단다 동해 덴바당 군중 덴바 자침부스게 지게 요말데 동해의 군중니기 용야기 자와디 로 맞추버지를 도스테니 용당디 유단 주부 튠지 깨져지 임바디 소소고 원진 체원도 잠베 신의 된지 존재기 남샤라야 아니 대바지 경원도 잠베 아니 신의 좀 된되게 아니 대류다 아니 잠반년샤 공부를
잠반년샤
다 신의 잠반년샤 공야 답자디 대류던 거도가
and so in terms of these so in terms of all of the four noble truths and the way in which to engage with the four noble truths, it's very important to understand, certainly understanding them in terms of cause and effect relationship, particularly, for instance, the clear relationship between the truth of suffering and the truth of the cause of suffering, and also so that there, in the way in which, and understanding how all of our suffering comes from, the process through which our suffering comes, and having sort of having an appreciation for the way that the Four Noble Truths work. So we wouldn't really have an appreciation of just the Noble Truth of suffering and the cause of suffering in themselves. We wouldn't sort of highly value them, but what we would value is the understanding of the relationship between the truth of suffering and the truth of the cause of suffering. So that way in which the causal relationship and the way that cause and effects arise in accord, results arise in accord with the causes which have produced them, and so that kind of appreciation or sort of value for the understanding of that relationship, but then also the aspects of that there is a cessation from that kind of suffering, and the path which leads us out to that cessation of that suffering. And so understanding these kind of causal relationships in a very detailed way, and then this leads us, and then this because the so then this and that, and with that full understanding, then we're sort of led towards the meditation on the four, because of the four, the four.
Close placements of mindfulness.
Oh yeah, the four close placements of mindfulness. So
normally we love mindfulness, and then the shamatha or something, we all say mindfulness, but here particularly Buddha himself designed this practice to bring the practice of the Four Noble Truths. 제가 denshiki 냠nen디 burdu työnyagi chedo yakuji yonyagi chedo ani shini lulu mebe tembanisha semna mebe tembanisha lulu mebe tembanisha di karelu komgu yome semna tembanisha di karelu dembashigi nane karelu di chigu yome sama 좀 된디게 베디 도 tembanisha 나로 shibuji 야치무지 송체 and digi ta chedo chebe dujo zo di karelesi dusambe 아니 denshiki dembashigi ta jidane dembashi di narone dungye dembe cheju tube tongwa da dameni tongwa da dame mida dungye tongwa dame gi ni zu du ya bo shende ni kansa jigla anti lo kumji den chedo an do tambani she song lo.
And so in the Buddha spoke about in the sutra on the four close placements of the four close placements of mindfulness. The Buddha spoke about in detail about the close placement of mindfulness on the body, on the feelings, on the mind and phenomena, and he spoke in detail about, for instance, exactly how you would meditate on this close placement of mindfulness on the body, and explain those in great detail, and those were explained in great detail to the specific disciples of that sutra in order to help them to understand in more detail the aspects of the within the Four Noble Truths, the First Noble Truth, and the four aspects of the First Noble Truth of impermanence, suffering, and particularly of the aspects on the empty nature and the selflessness within the aspects of the First Noble Truth. The sutra on the four close placements of mindfulness were spoken in order to help expand or kind of trying to find the right word, to expand or to kind of augment our understanding of the practices that we do in relation to the Four Noble Truths.
So take a break. Okay, 15 minutes break. 사시 부시시 제절리 신진전 전보드 선제신도 닝데 그거 남다 신나죠 쇼예담
구루라 나만다라 감네야다야
나다 딘제기 다 참반이 샤기 아니 냠된 체장디 들려야 다 지침부 야구 차용도 아니 신의 양다봉시 양다봉시
So taking this sort of way of practicing that we've been talking about and sort of making that kind of sort of firmer, then we come to a subject called the four complete abandonments.
다 양다 딘데기 양다 봉시디 거수 아니 다지 개치슈 내가 통해야디 다고 봉세베도 준비 녀모보 사변도 지와 봉에 그 시험도 준비 신내당 활동기 신내당 활동기 아니 지기 년부 즉 벌써 우리 제제 신내당 활동 셈 딘데기 년부 제야디 신내당 활동기 오를 줄지 아니 디기 년부 맞체나 아니 봉 누구미도 냐베 로제 원도 좀베 신에 아니 주주지 강바시들라비아
And so then in relation to these four sort of perfect abandonments, or the four complete abandonments, then if we are able to sort of have a mind which has which we're able to take the shaman in order to abandon the mental afflictions from their very root, and we're able to get the minds of shamatha, or karma abiding, and vipassana to act, to be sort of our minds to be in that nature of shamatha and vipassana, and then to be able to use those to act as an antidote towards the root of the mental afflictions, and then if we're able to do that, then comes on to the next sort of topic, which is the four limbs of miraculous Zutukambashi. Four limbs of miraculous Zutukambashi. Is it four miraculous activities? Do she do it? Yeah, Zutukambashi, Zutu. So miraculous emanations, the four limbs of miraculous emanations, something like that. Did you? Because it's Salujan could do none of the same back.
Allez, tu es un peu longtemps.
Allez,
Jidane. Dans la dire Changju Sudun role, wa. Changju Sudun.
Oh, so this is what we're doing is sort of looking within the the 37 factors of enlightenment and
did it, da da di na rola zudu ji kangba shi ji le wa. Da che zanga listed. I have no idea. I have no idea. List them. Oh, then it's a big question.
So the 37 factors of enlightenment.
Oh. Let's see, okay? Okay. Last one, John.
Rami. Give me the son.
Oh, that's Tadua. Dumbe Zuji Kangba. Dumba.
Aspiration, the limb of miraculous emanation of aspiration, of joyous effort. So the conduct, the miraculous emanation of conduct, and mental miraculous emanation. Dumba. Oh, Danara do that.
The fourth. Sem.
Might. Yeah.
Oh, that the Zutamalo, Yanko, Rebechin, Anjo, Shine Dubicabla, ya. So then the Nengati Carter to Slana, the Anjo Shine Dubu in Siguare, Shazangata, and that day, Anjo Tende, Yana Juni, any Rimbati, any doctor Vichedo, any Shine Carasore, go Shine Dudangi, Rimbati, those Loadwa. Kidana same temple suing say Kija member. I know Dinjigi Yandapon she top of do Sembe, and same temple Jimena, and you women do Shinin to Juji Kambala Labedi, Taco Bujumbo Dante. The dinner got him.
So there's a very important sort of way in which the sort of the sort of sequence through which these are developed. So in terms of in terms of relating the calm abiding to the 12 links, and particularly in terms of trying to reverse the process of the 12 links, and so not just developing the shamatha in terms of just being able to develop a stable kind of mind, but also in using the shamatha to, as we've described, to help us to achieve these four complete abandonments, and there, and then from there, from the four complete abandonments to these four limbs of because of a miraculous kind of emanation. So this is the sequences that we use the shamatha for this process, going through the sequence of the 37 factors of enlightenment.
창조 수든
the 37 factors of enlightenment.
디 슈고들이 아니 신에 다 신에다 하동 왜냐면 디하고 총차비 슈고라 아니 실라 송제의 토네 아니 처럼도 때네 저럼 답해야 돼 아니 좀 받을 내용도 와.
And so then through this is developing the minds of shamatha and vipassana, and then taking once those have been well developed, then creating a union of shamatha and vipassana, and then working through the paths of the paths from the path of accumulation, and then through to the path of preparation. This is the next stage, using this union of shamatha and vipassana.
다드네디니 아니 졸람디가서 옹봉알로서부터 저디 아니 검도 옹봉안에 토마스 제제 졸람 최점모 서바 추조스다 두기 르바데네테네 아니 신에 다지게 아저게 단다 데아타 가데가데 파라가데 파라상바데 부다이 소아신 신에레레레네 주단 주 아니 또 아주 퍼진 쇼나로라 되도와
because 조람 기갑스디기
조람 기갑소 아니 저점모 서바 추조스도와
알레오 디난신
저점모 서바 추조갑소 아니 옹봉알로스 옹봉알 땅 떠봉아세기 두조래요 아니 로디체 아니 chanju 양라 된다 방랑 양라 제스치치 르바선 주도
and so and then within the path of preparation, then the achievement of the 5 powers and 5 strengths, and working through then on the path of preparation the 4 stages of the path from up from including heat and up to the peak of the peak of the path of the peak of preparation, sort of, and working our using these on the basis of these 5 powers and 5 strengths, moving up through these the stages of the path of preparation, and in this way we follow the and then also the related to the 8 branches of the Arya path. So following when we say Tayata, Gati Gati, Paragati, Parasangati, Buddhist Soha, working through then sort of this is the way that we work through the various paths, using these in relation to the 37 factors of enlightenment, and then following that sequence of moving up through the paths of accumulation, preparation, seeing, and such like, as is described in that Tayata Gati Gati, like this.
다디 탄다 랍고요 조 가르스나 아니 제장가 아란주기 좀 된디기 탄다 솔루션비 도요값소 아니 그 탄다 이게 간라 수 땡지 좀 중앙 통화디기 최 통그레 세두점베 땡중디 준제 땡중게 좀 받이야고 지지 로레 군지야고 차 레 준제를 선보야고 코나 신예 레 준제게 선보도 야고 코바 텔 때네 땡지 지금 로중당 로도기 남샤들로 코아지하고 차 디차바 될 때네 아니 신에 지게 단다 런조 동안다 담이게 남샤 될 때네 아니 신에 지게 람곰도 좀 봐도 신의 영향이 참마 저와도만 손에 땡지 저와 좀 통년되기 그랬어 통년되기 그랬어
And so why am I sort of presenting this in connection with what we've been talking about in terms of the 12 links. And so this, particularly in this relation to this part of the Rice Seedling Sutra, where it says that whoever sees dependent origination, they see the Dharma. And so really having this very clear understanding of the causal dependent origination in relation to how, and particularly in relation to how karmic cause and effects works, and having on the basis of this very clear understanding of causal dependent origination, then understanding this in relation to the 12 links, both in the way in which we sort of engage into the 12 links in the forward process, and the way which we reverse and get out of the 12 links, and then how, and also in connection to what we talked about in terms of particularly the last two aspects of the truth of suffering, the aspects of being empty and selfless, and then using these all of these to these understandings to meditate on the path, then. So sort of joining all of these things together in order to help us meditate on the path and in relation to the 12 links of dependent origination.
So now we kind of, from here, we get a kind of clear picture from which part we need to study these, and learn, practice, like when to achieve shamatha, when to achieve the vipassana. And then the mindfulness practices.
4 foundations.
For what?
Yeah, the 4 close placements.
Close
placement of mindfulness.
For mindfulness. So all this, normally whoever is giving this teaching, we just go. But then you don't have any kind of a particular reason to receive this teaching. And wherever people is selling, we go there. But now here, this sequence, if you know, and then you first going to ask for this particular teaching of shamatha, then first you need to think, am I just waiting for or want this shamatha for what reason? And then if you have like reason is I feel to do it, then there's not much kind of a complaint from anybody, because you are your boss. But now you have taken a good guidance from Buddha or your teacher, particularly who gives this teaching, the sequence, and then you really need to understand this is important, but it can wait, because I don't have this kind of understanding yet. So that reminds my one of my teachers when he was he's a teacher, my teacher's teacher. Oh, such a great practitioner in Jatula.
Yeah.
So one time when he gives teaching, he automatically kind of goes into another planet. Then he doesn't matter. It becomes like 2-3 hours, and sometimes the most annoying thing is in the school when somebody has this the Gishe celebration, and the food is so good, and then it is 12 o'clock. They start ringing the bell. And then our class starts around 10:30. So at 11:30 or 12, we need to stop. But our teacher, when he goes into his own planet, then he explains, close his eyes and put the hand on his ear. Then he speaks for hours and hours. And then it becomes 1 o'clock. And then there was more worry, because the food, the special foods, other students will come and eat it. And then we have this worry. Very stupid worry, but my teacher goes into this kind of a special state of mind, for surely. And then sometimes, if you listen very carefully, sometimes he will normally won't say this because he's so humble. So one time he just goes on giving the teaching, and then he said, well, my effort and my body is very weak and quite sick, and then sometimes lots of problem. But if I have a body like you, and then
sort of logical reasoning, the reasoning sort of mind, intelligence,
the intelligence like you, and effort. No, effort. I don't want your effort. It's really something. Effort. I don't want your effort. So he said, I have all this together. Definitely, I have a certainty that in this life, I can get clairvoyance and some kind of zuchu.
Zuchu, yes, the sort of clairvoyant powers and miraculous
powers.
Yeah.
The powers. But then he automatically just stops and say, well, even I can achieve this in this life, but I really need to give up this until I don't get a great compassion or bodhicitta. May I never have this kind of a power in my life. And then he just closes his eyes and then meditates, and then another maybe 5-10 minutes no speaking, and he would just go like that. I noticed that, and I felt like, wow, that's something incredible. That's very incredible. And then every time when I see people receiving teachings, that and that and that, and then I always ask a question, like kind of judging people, not good, but sometimes I feel like, are they really going there to tame their mind or to get power and bring more suffering in their life and for others? And then same time when I receive teachings, initiations, then I try to check whether I have this similar way of my teacher's way of thinking or not. Very helpful. So now reason why I try to give this sequence is something that in the future, when you will go there and here to receive lots of teachings, so you really need to understand for what reason I am receiving this teaching for, and meditation. What are you, why you need this kind of meditation? So then, staying on the track. That's very important. 다 되는 디 워든 다 도신다. 담때는 슝대주로나.
So if we look to the now to the text, on the 26th chapter.
No. 다 된지 양라 세도 잠배 된진 저와 중앙 대고 강이 셰바오스 다 단다디 직지디기 관계 된진 저와 중 통화 디 동해다 군중 되는 거보다 남니 더다 통화인 세야 되기 아니 딘중 세야다 된제 생인데 가리에면디 드시디다 년 야바티레스 다디 시리 디 양라게라도 저바체데스 다디 하고저비 슈고라 아니 양라 중니 양라 중니 거네다 고아 고단라야 신의 오다 알이야 딘제기 아니 딘중기 남샤 참어디 신야다 파드샤 아니 딘제기 로초 아니 지기 아주 지기 딱바 땜바 틀수 딘제기 로초 속도바 지기 진인디에 지기 요도 잠베 안 신행할 코알 코야 디리샤스메가 삼로디 레온도 잠베 디 치리 아니 양라기 라도 줘버 쳐봐 아니 양라기 가서 양라기 예와 줘버를 셴이 되게도 아니 신이 좀 버치는 마 송베인스.
So then here where we read before the line where it says the verse where it says he who sees arising by dependent origination sees suffering and origin, cessation, and the path itself as well, and the path itself. And then it says, since it's necessary to understand arising by dependent relation, its branches are analyzed in detail with these words. And so here it explains the need for us to have this very detailed understanding of dependent relation or dependent origination, and the way that connects us to in relationship to the way that we sort of cycle around in samsara, and the way that it helps us to understand both the sort of way in which we the way in which we the forward way of the process of the 12 links, and also the reverse process of the 12 links, because the tetsomdang karidin the tetsomdang Chandi somre tetsomdang
가리카도 태수
tetsomse menbe
태수
aleo tesu 다바 tesu 드네바
딱바당 태수세도 곧 다가랑 이엠바 다가랑래 세미네 타지도 진로야지
taji aleo. So we really need to sort of have this understanding of dependent relation in relation, and then being able to connect that to the 12 links in a very sort of permanent sort of way of being able to connect all of those pieces together. And then it says here, so you don't do it, so this is so then it says it's necessary to understand the arising by dependent relation. Its branches are analyzed in detail with these words. So then it begins the explanation of the 12 links themselves.
다든지 뒤에다 딱바다 틀수세야디 좀 친줄로 깨져들다
알레오
제장가 덴제 양나 중니기 덴제세야기 덴진 저와 중이기 내당 데리샤 니기 좀바디 좀바 친줄로 딱바 틀수 아니 셴라 때와메바도 진단치도 오 디기 삼로디 예베 토네 아니 신에다 덴제 양나 중니를 맞다나스.
So understand, so sort of also helping us to bring this understanding of the dependent origination and dependent relation, and the way to the sort of nature of phenomena, but which helps us also to understand how our way of sort of operating is, where we cling to things as permanent, we cling to things as eternal, and cling to them in sort of mistaken ways. And so this understanding of dependent origination helps us to realize that those ways of thinking are mistaken, and then with that, in that context, we then look at we start to analyze and look at the different branches of the 12 links.
다디네 자와된 고조도 머리 뒤에 양세실 뒤제 넘버 숨보다 엄버 뒤제 칸임베 레데다 도와도스. And
so then the first verse of the of Nagarjuna's 26th chapter reads, because ignorance that obstructs, because of ignorance that obstructs, one is reborn. What forms has three aspects, and formative actions keep migration going.
다 제장가 머리베드 셰디 맞선에 대규형도 머리 집에 양시치르세도 머리버스니디 오 미시바디 오 마시비 오 미시바디스 아 미시바 제야디 미시바세야디 가르잖아 디비트레스 디바쳐봐
So then it explains that what is this sort of entity or nature of ignorance, which is that of not knowing, and what that ignorance does is it obstructs, it covers over or obstructs reality. Because a nola capture with that.
all the countries. Maribi go all the current Mishiba. Mishiba the young, Jidan Mashiba Zamse, kitchen chair. Any you'll change your load should be law. Mishiba Zama, but you'll change your load should be law.
So then this nature or entity of ignorance is not knowing, but it's not a mere not knowing. In this case, it's an active form of a completely mistaken way of understanding things, so understanding the reality. So that's what the entity of the nature of this ignorance is. And so what sort of function does that have? And that has the function to mean that we are reborn in a future existence.
GPS ki gogo tangdo GPS ki gogo tangdo.
Oh, GPS, yes. So just so as the GPS in a car, the tracking in a car will sometimes sort of get mistaken and confused and lead us in a wrong direction. So we're supposed to go in to one particular place, but the GPS instead leads us around another way.
GPS la ko tajigdo ruzuya khema taju sosu mi shibe mo wadigwa ta.
So we can say this is a sort of kind of not knowing or a kind of confusion or not knowing.
Tadi opposite tiru ba.
And so it can take us it is possible through this not knowing to take us in an opposite direction. Confusion.
Mariba sinyendela ya tanda diga so mariba sinyendela So
then in this context here of the ignorance, we have to posit it as an ignorance which engages with its object in a completely sort of inverted, opposite kind of way to the way things are.
GPS ki tubadi kawati to sudu and chinjulo passion bajil to mando robosa del timarwata.
So it doesn't take us. So then, in the same way, this ignorance doesn't take us to our destination because it's a mind of not knowing, but specifically a mind which is kind of completely mistaken with relation to its object. So in the same way as the GPS gets confused and leads us away in a completely wrong direction, so does the ignorance also act in this way.
Duje number data dinamant mashi ma teslon hako she sonso tela mariba de mishiba des du bebegi tanda tedati 타제 봐. 타제 세도 칠 항마 요리스. 단다 조요 말스 봐. 미시바데스 미시바세에 가를 쓰기잖아. 민바 당 양다바 지다와를 집어쳐 봐. 오스. 야 경치.
So then reading this is Chandrakirti's commentary where it says so it says ignorance is not knowing, and in the Tibetan it uses this thing called a is a particle, which means that there's something more to be said. That's not the end of things. There's something more to be said, and so it says ignorance is not knowing, and ignorance is an obscuration, an obstruction, obstructing reality as it is.
다 머리버티 듀싱 까베스 간사키스 양시비 치데스 양시비 된당 양시버 중화 치비칠 관계 개발로 소버 삼바타 오버 두치진 깨버쳐고.
And so then it says the commentary reads on, the meaning of one is reborn is those person covered by the obstruction of ignorance are reborn because they form rebirth through intention, virtues, and the other, that is, they produce.
양시버 제별 렘비체도 레 베나다 지기 개회레 제베이네리 민게벨레 제베이네리 아니 지기 랑주가 지기 감 고만의 제베 미유벨레 쓰바 미유벨레 수나마인벨레 이제 간제지 제베 제베이나양 아니 고 영시치모 편지기 레드 차로
And so, in terms of this, being reborn and taking up a future existence, and then the three aspects which you're talking about here are, so the three aspects which you're talking about here are the, as it says in the commentary here, are the virtuous actions, the non-virtuous actions, and the unmoving or immovable actions. So for instance, the virtuous actions being born in virtuous states, and the immovable actions leading us to taking up a future rebirth in this sort of form and formless realms. So these are the three aspects which are spoken about in the root text there.
다 두체와 시두잠베 고 du chigre sedi ko ruru chigre sedi bada ruru chigre
so formations now it moves on to talk about so when it says formations, that means formations means to sort of bring together, to aggregate or to bring together.
제장 같은 아라한테 코에 나로로 주 팁을 제 용주를 했어. 그
So that the place where we're sort of drawn together, that place is the samsara, where we're pulled together or drawn together.
다디 이지미지 삼당 외딩 알아줘다 지향식 다 최바 인스 야 멤버 인스 위나 이고 인지민지 그냥 알아줘 제장가 개와 제가 삼로딩 아주 참말 요레스 이내 개와 제바되기 개와디 배주 거할는 당에 인스 배주 거할 당에 인스 랍도 준비 이 개와디 아니 타바토비치도 이 탐지 준비 고반 토비치도 인스 아주 러브요레스 가네 이나양 랍다 러브요레데 아니 단다디 땡데 양로 주니 송백갑도 머리비 샤마는 로제 아니 레시 사소나스 레시 사소나 가왈도 두치그레 세디 개와 영시치마 코웨기 영시치마를 당 지금 코웨기 개와나로를 두치그레스 송도 왔어.
But what this is explaining to us here is that although as practitioners or Dharma people, we would all have the wish to sort of engage in virtuous actions, but then there's a big question as to what do we use this virtue for? Where do we use it? And it's easy for us to say, for the purpose of liberation, for the purpose of attaining complete enlightenment. We say those kind of things, but what's being explained here in relation to the 12 links is that if we are under the power, under the sway of this other power of the ignorance, and then accumulate karmic kind of, we accumulate karma, then later our future rebirth will be guaranteed to be a rebirth in samsara.
레디 코웨 개월렌지 디페조당했지만도 코월이 계획이 쳐도 배조당사라.
So that sort of karma that we accumulated will throw us into, be used to throw us into a samsaric rebirth, and it won't be something which turns back the process of samsara.
제상가다 딜라야 안에 야발동 아주 샘을 샤고야 돼. 지금 동니도비기 삼로 튜니 메디니 지기 아니 전주기 샘 주부 지금 아니 인지 숙충부 지금 아니 대기 토네 진소 퍼진 쪽이 냠네 가주 지기 제베이나양 아니 대기기 레 탐지 가리기 그래서도 코알기 없지 그래서.
So what's the thing that we should put in our mind when we sort of hold in our mind in relation to what's being said here is that if you have someone that really doesn't have any thought for emptiness, and but however has a very strong practice in the awakening, the mind of enlightenment, the awakening mind of bodhicitta, has a very strong practice of compassion, engages in the practices of the 6 perfections, but all of that will end up being a sort of karma which will still continue to throw them into a rebirth in samsara.
디 인도점에 땅 알아는 저기 세미나로 녀바든 녀버 제고야 되라 아니 지기 최제베가라 아니 녀기 최드나로야 최제기 람기 최드 도면도 아니 민제기 람기 최드 도면도 안 하와도 최제기 람 맨이 민제기 람데 가족곰샤베이나 한테 다탐제 코하나를 게 유래서 타 줘버지 쇠고르스.
And so if we whatever, so when we look at our own practices, our dharma lives, the practices that we're engaged in and the things we're doing in relation to our dharma life, and what we have to do is look very carefully at all of that we are doing for that purpose of our dharma lives, and understanding whether that is those practices are part of what's called the liberating path, or whether they're part of the sort of ripening path. And if we haven't got any of our practices which are in the category of the liberating path, then it's 100% guaranteed that those or any merit from those things will lead us back to a rebirth in samsara.
제상가 말한적이 아니 단단한 속에 아주 좀 된디기 단단 너고 공지 장제 아니 규메 부모라야 아니 차버제체 디 규메 부모를 마다버체 앞에 신이 발다체 아니 메다버 공바데 얘기 람고마 마인스치라고 송해야 되겠다.
그래서 이 규메 부모되기 전에 메다버 공바되기.
규메 부모들라 규메 부모들라 앞에 신이 발다.
스니바다 알레오
스니바다니 텔레미다보고 아니 차고메버 쇠베 인세디 람고마 인세디 단 내가 다가랑.
So this also relates back to something I talked about earlier in this morning when I talked about this sort of quote or discussion from the sutra where somebody took what was an illusory woman and took them to be a real woman, and then on the basis of that they developed sort of practices to remove or control their desire. But this is and it was said that this is not the Buddha says this is not a path. This is not a path of practice. I can speak from many places now. The miraculous power there. So it was said that this is not a true path because of taking the illusory woman to be a real person and then meditating on that. So this also connects to that quote or instruction from the sutra.
디 란주기 컨텐츠 조당 아니 지금 개발 지금 가주스 제토메를 수술을 때제 아니 지 계획이 내가 나직 제가 대양 아니 다음에 또 시럽이 심배 뜻이고 신이 상황지당 비다보지도 가버려야 돼 이나야 그 튼지 수익이 있다 수술이 공지로 제제 아니 다음에 또왜 톤에 랑심해 봐 삼로 땅에 톤에 아니 제소 퍼진 쪽에 냠nen도 제용나 아니 신의 되게 다 지금 최제게 남다 민지게 남 차상오지 누구요리스.
And so if we're able, whatever sort of dharma practices we do, sort of our daily our daily practices, our daily recitations, all of these virtuous things that we do as part of our daily Dharma practice. However much we do, it's important that this is influenced or held in the kind of context of, in some way, of the understanding of the lack of inherent nature, the emptiness, the lack of inherent nature of things, and developing that habit. So even if it's not, of course, very difficult to get a really correct, full, complete understanding of emptiness, but if you have some kind of habituation towards that understanding that of the empty nature of things and that they're lacking of inherent nature, then if we engage in our practices and practices that are connected with such as the six in relation to the six perfections, then through that then we can say that we'll have a more complete practice where we have both the ripening path but also the liberating path as part of our practice.
제장다 곰림기 나로라 베세브 요르바 제장가 시럽단 트베 탑단 트베 시럽스 이걸로 칭화레스.
So it's in the stages of meditation, it says this very clearly, where so the method devoid of wisdom and the wisdom devoid of method, they're both they're things which bind us, or cause us to bind us into 코올리칭. So it could be either into, it can either, they would either so they're sort of related to 카리샤르 and 다위 탑디기.
시럽다 제베 탑디기 코알칭 것은 코알칭.
코알칭. 탑단 다위
탑단 탑 아무래 시럽다 제베 시럽다 제베기 탑디기 아니 코알칭. 안에 탑단 제베기 다가려.
나디만 셔르든 다위
탑도
셔르디기 코알칭.
탑도 여베치 셔럽디 메비나 코알칭 체. 다 셔럽도 여 아니 탑디 메비나 코알칭 수도 시월이.
So that actually the way and whether so just checking with Rinpoche, where do they bind us? So so the method, having the method which is devoid of wisdom, will bind us into the samsara. Having wisdom but devoid of the method will lead us to will bind us into the sort of solitary peace.
디 뉴점베 당란쫄이야 단다 깔리치슈디 디 코알칭 얘기 디nen가 잘.
So the most difficult or complicated for us is getting bound into the samsara.
We are trying to do all sort of getting all great teachings, and then doing so many recitations and sadhanas and practices. But then we never asked ourselves, with this practice, all this thing, the 냠낸 두주 제버되기 코알 저버 제투도 제투만도 슬람나.
So on the basis of those practices we're doing, are they helping me, or am I able, on the basis of those practices, to be liberated from samsara or not? We rarely ask ourselves this question.
제상가 고 담에도 비 시럽기 아니 고 점에 춘제리야 로이 심베토네 아니 냠낸 제디 인지미지 슈다고 그랬어.
So we really need to, because German saying be.
점만 많이 버지.
Yeah, German.
점만지 중배네. 점만 많이 버지 중배네. 네, 슈다고 그랬다.
So we need to make effort in this understanding of the sort of understanding of the wisdom which understand. So the wisdom of selflessness, whether that's a contrived sort of wisdom of selflessness or whether it's uncontrived wisdom of selflessness, but that's the place where we really sort of need to put our effort into. For all our practices to be held in the kind of sphere of that, or the context of that understanding of selflessness.
저처럼 담에 또 시럽이 이 심베토네 아니 게벨레 카리 제샤베 있나요? 안디 코알 편지기 주디 말이스. 코알 두버 치빌레 마레스 디 코알 처버 치빌람레스 다 신에 아니 두지기 코알 페마 팽기 계자디 다 신에 담에도 비셔르 시만 생토니 시기요레스.
So then, with this influence of this wisdom of selflessness, then whatever virtues we do will not cause us to be thrown back into samsara, but they will actually be causes which will help to liberate us from samsara. And so when we talk about whether something is a throwing karma leading us to samsara or not leading us to samsara, in some way we can say that is the difference is defined on whether it is held within the influence of wisdom of selflessness or not.
세상가 이제 지름부치기 단단하게 흉나로래 체규기 거두다 아니 배 오늘 제베이나 데 체규기 이게 다제된 갑려야 아니 이제 나게 서버워슈도 사와다마 서버워슈도 항세기 치디메버치 아니 동반이도 주 동뱅알에서 거두러셔도 와 이내 지름부치기 네버도 디카도다 서버워슈도 사와다마서 고네 봐 참아 죽으레스
거스
차선 죽으레스 남셔 균도 요마레 동반이도 주 동뱅알에서 계속 고죽으로 와 다 제르무치기 너름심은 나로라 서버워슈도 쓰던 고네 차상 봐 죽으스
고네 차상 봐주 아래 어디 닦게체던
다제 갑라 제주 급수 다제 디어와 다제 갑라 지기디가네 마 서버워슈 pompa 제베이나 하제베이나 두 참말로 아니 서버워슈도 사와다마세 치주와 하고요 어디 죽으리스 띵하게 중나로 카시나로라 동반이도 주루르세 지간마도 계점에도 이제 인지 미지 죽으리스 디 죽으비 다 죽으리세 가르스 제르부치게 디모주비 나랑저 나게 중나 냠년 친이 망보지 다들 레 당보 줘봐 레 당보 주기 담상코나 동반이도 주 동병안에서도 딜 동반이도 삼로시라 마당부터 하네 그러와 동 서버와슈도 세도 담배 아니 지난게 뒤에 수수기 규기 뒤에 아니 지게 가르쳐고랑 아다 엔 얘기 풍부다도 탐제니 동반이도 주 동병안에서 삼로 흘려 땅에 주어 봐 어디 제베이나 신의 고 되제글람도 두고 여자 이제 좀 지기 년된치는 이 디간로 디컬로 요레스 라베균 요레스.
And so Lama Tsongkhapa gives us some advice in relation to this in his because in the stages of his text, the stages of the treatises on the stages of the tantric path, in the section on action tantra, and particularly in relation to the self-generation in action tantra, where he says that in some texts, tantric texts, it just says sort of subside or dissolve into emptiness, and then everything arising out of emptiness, for the deity arising out of emptiness. But Jai Rinpoche makes a specific point where he says that we you have to sort of engage or go sort of really engage with that meditation that's involved with saying those words, and not just say go into emptiness and come back out of subside into emptiness and come back out of emptiness as the deity. He says that if you really think about this Sambhava, this going through this in this process properly, then you'll really make you think about the way in which all of in stages, how the I and the aggregates and everything are all dissolved into the emptiness in that way, and then arising. And so because it's very easy for us to just say the words like dissolve into emptiness and then arise, and really doing tantric practice in that way, but not really thinking about emptiness. So he says that if you use this phrase of Om Sambhava Vishuddha to go through that process, then it will become a very firm sort of way of meditating on emptiness, and that will help us to, for the practices that we're doing, to become the liberating path. And so that's the advice that Rinpoche gives in the great stages on tantric path.
So, 제장가 아란주 냠낸 간지지 제베이나 안에 당보디 고 가르서고래 좀 단들다 실험용부 나로일라야 또 도초 나로 찬 실험용부 나로라 소 동바오 세야 될라 가서 슉지 잡토 베이나 아니 되네 소 동바오 시도 잠베 아니 동뱅앙 레세야 돼 계제도 개요 말이데 아니 동바 디기 안에 아니 지 나와지 샤로원도 잠베 아니 나와디 다 동백이 녀바도 같이 슉침부 참아 되기 아니 나와들이야 짐바 마게브체 짐바 마게브체체 아니 롱제치 딜레온도 잠베 다디 아주마소네 아란주 다 동반이 탕보 지금 로라야 콘리야고 요디니 디기 이 신에 셴바메베 토네 롱제 세기
and so that was in the tantric context, but if we also look at in the sutra context, in terms of doing practices within the sutra context, and we look at the words in the Heart Sutra where it says form is emptiness, and so not specifically thinking out from the sort of dissolving into emptiness and then from arising from that state of emptiness, but more in the sense that form is emptiness, but then although things are empty, appearances are able to arise. So if we think about it in that context, and then if we so it's more in a sutra context of understanding of emptiness, and then if we think of that, how appearances are able to arise whilst being empty, then this will help us to that understanding will help us to have less kind of clinging or grasping to things, and we'll be able to enjoy. We'll be able to sort of interact with phenomena, to enjoy and relate to them in a way which has less for us, for having less grasping. And if somebody has an extremely good understanding of emptiness, then this way will allow them to sort of engage with all of these appearances, the appearance of phenomena, without sort of to engage with them without having any clinging at all.
Oh yeah. 제 생각 다 말한주 마리비 삼로 예배 토네 마리비 온도로지 아니 church 차간도나 디 고발에 기야죠 마리벌에 년부 때문에 토네 아니 church 차간도나 아니 달베죠.
And so we can say that if under the power or the influence of ignorance, if we even if we practice, this will lead us to only to take further rebirth in samsara. And if we're able to practice in a way where we're free of being under the power of that ignorance, then that will lead us away from samsara and to liberation, towards liberation.
So my one of my friend, he said, I'm only doing, his commitment is only Omani Peme. So then he says, every beats,
every beat, yeah,
the
each
beats
time he recites one beat.
Recites the Omani Peme, he says, I make everything count. What does he mean? He's such a good practitioner. Saying, then when he says Om Mani Padme Hum, he will focus on not only just Bodhicitta, compassion, but more he will focus on the Pema, the lotus,
yeah.
So which clearly says about the emptiness. So the only hope in our mind, we are so deluded, but there's one mind in us which is like a lotus coming from the mud, but still unstained. That mud is knowing the emptiness.
Understanding.
So so he says this is the only hope. So he says, so when Omani Peme Hong, he just meditated on Pema. And then he says, for finding this kind of a lotus, and may I can give this to others. So then his Omani Peme Hong is very special. And he says he never does many other commitments, but Omani Peme Hong is his favorite. So he's doing this. So I found this quite a strong teaching. So it's not like he counts thousands and thousands or recite until the nails and the finger just gets. But more, he's trying to bring it towards his heart. So very encourageable. So like this, now I think Aranzu Chö Kandeji Chebe Yinayang, Tatanda Dinalola, Aranzu Kichishudi, Lake Give Chawa, and Kandeji Chebe Yinaya, Ti Koala Keber Chebiki, Jiggy Le Chagi Yoda Mesa, De, I think Aranzu don't need to be shut up and Dame to be shut up, Simji Cheyoda, Ti Koala. Pember chebe jumare, koala travel chebe jure. Di ta chebe tone, ani tiring kiranzu pa, room the pa petana. Kandu judo with day, Tango dos galeor. But the jig, Jemmy Tunjil, Kadu, Kanto doji, Tiranzo, or Combashiro Nance.
And so I'd like to urge you to sort of to go when you go back to your rooms and today to really think about it. Was a little bit difficult at the beginning, but maybe to think about how whatever Dharma practice we do, whatever sort of virtuous activities that you be engaged in, to sort of look at whether they're becoming the causes for throwing us into a further samsaric rebirth, or whether they are held within the understanding of emptiness and the wisdom of selflessness, and whether that's a sort of contrived understanding of those, or whether it's an uncontrived understanding of those, and having this sort of being very decisive about this and very clear about this, about what our activities are actually like. And so of course it's a little bit difficult at the beginning, but I would encourage you to go away from this evening and to start looking at these things.
지상가 동리도비 시럽기 심비 계제시도 담배야 가도에는 동리도비 시럽 온도 주 선물 땅제야 가도에는 디치 계제 말했어.
So I don't mean that when we talk about being held in the influence of the understanding of emptiness, or the a realization, the sort of understanding of selflessness, I don't mean the sitting, so every single moment having to, it's not talking about every single moment having to be meditating on emptiness. That's not what's meant here.
That's so much pressure. 대 제장가 동리도 비 셔럽 쓰면서 당보 동리도 비 셔럽 될야 때 냐바제지 딘저기 시스템 되기 토네 행에게 저 그래지네 디 꾸는 토네 제나 제주라나 섬지 디 로래야 아니 지금 가와도도 손에 슈카죠 침부 땅토비나 엔디 기 아니 가서래 가와디다 쪼와디기 아니 잉디 마예비 토니로 시 가져 자와체비나 엔데 디에 참지 다지게 커도 다 토브게지 시에비나 아니 사메기 레세디 기저라다.
And so what's meant here by this, being held in this influence of the understanding of emptiness or the selflessness is more the way that having sort of thought about and sort of meditated on these subjects such as emptiness and selflessness, and then if we get some sort of ascertainment about that, some sort of little bits of certainty about that, and then taking that mind as a kind of motivation, and a sort of also having with that a sort of sense of joy or delight at then taking that with us into all of our other activities, and then so this is the way that we sort of this is the way in which the influence of emptiness and is and selflessness is understood. I mean, if when we talk about a very high level, then we would be talking about sort of unstained sort of unstained karma or unstained practices, but having that sense of joy and delight also that comes from that ascertainment is important.
So you try it, but then you don't need to think I need a perfect realization at first. But first, our realization is a kind of a not totally fake, but it's more like children's drawing. No? But the more you enjoy the drawing, even it's funny drawing, and then it is parents' duty to say, wow. And then this through encouragement, and we have to so we should, for that reason, don't just go for the whether best, but somehow most to check is not to check with the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. More it is to check that through this kind of emptiness, it is bringing your ego down, self-grasping down. That is the most powerful one. So that I always tell my friends, and I'm telling myself, somebody goes into a retreat, what is the city? Cities. What you got from? Then if says, oh, retreat go very, very well, then whether he got a city or not. The city is more your grasping goes down, attachment goes down. That is the city. Nobody asked that actually. Saying, wow, you did a 3 month retreat, so wonderful. 3 years, wow, wonderful. But no kind of a person will, very close friend will ask like this, you have this strong anger issue, did it go really down? This grasping went down a bit. They don't ask that. Normally it should be, Dharma friends need to ask. Otherwise, better not ask, it's a pervert thing. So yeah, thank you very much. Okay. So we stop here today and then tomorrow same time. Okay.
我萨杰贝给求吉梅多张，里达并吉涅德根巴迪，桑耶行多灭德瓦伊，这个南达新拉杰巴说，杰尊拉梅古泽拉登金，那不嘎金雷周周给巴当。 Lo sang den bejen me sa songi, jove munze ta dune gyu chi, ye dam guru ratna mandala kami adayami. Chita te pe don la de ba shi, ne dang den do zu shin rab dang ne, sam je ne sam le jung wa ye. Nam je lo ye te tsum je pa shu, kang ni ra we go we jing kam dia ben dang de wa ma lu jung we ne, chen le zig mang den jing ga so ye, sa be je de ba du den gyu chi, ge wa gun du yang da la ma da, jia me che ge be le long che jing. Sang gang lam gi yen den rab zong ne, do chang chang gi ko pang nyo do shu. Chang bel ba wo ji da gen ba dang, kun do sang po de yang te shin de. de da gungi jesu da lo chi geva de da tam che ra du de zum she be geva tam che gi ngova gam la jo do ngam ba de da ge ge ve sa ve di kun kyang sam bo che che ra du ngova gi den ba den jen jo gi ma ya bam kyab gang nyam ba gi ve jo de ni Ningye jembu ye rab kye ba yi pende del de sawa ye ba shu. Om Swasti, may all be auspicious. O charming Lady of Seven Eyes, Supreme Mother of the Triumphant, exceptional deity skilled in bringing a great rain.
You can do at the last one. Do the swift return of Separation.
Swift return prayer for Lama Subodhi.
Oh, charming lady.
Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Prajeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
Chanju Simjo Rinpoche, So 7:30, isn't it? 7:30. Alex will do a review and ask very difficult questions. So you are in a very good hands, full of knowledge. So please make use this time, precious time. Don't
waste the time. Use it carefully.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.